I was stuck playing the part of helper and babysitter on family outings. I had to move out of my parents' house because I kept being forced to help watch my 3 nephews. Last year, we took a family vacation to the coast. I rode along with my parents and they paid for my hotel room. I had to share the room with my nephews. 3 rowdy boys because my sister and her husband wanted a room to themselves. I was promised time to do my own things on the vacation, but I ended up having to help with these kids. I complained to everyone about it and was reminded that I was there for free. We pretty much just did one thing I wanted to do, which was tour an art gallery. I like doing this whenever I'm at the coast, but the kids find it boring. This year, my parents have a beach trip planned for June. They assumed I'd be riding along the same way as last year, but I said I'd be driving myself and paying for my own hotel room. My parents were shocked and tried to remind me of the cost. I said it was no problem. I've got a good job and a decent car, so I can afford it. That's when they started complaining. I listed the reasons why I'll be driving myself and paying for myself. I want to enjoy this vacation as an adult, not be treated like a child like last year. My parents told my sister, who called to yell at me that I'll be ruining the vacation if I'm off doing my own thing while she has to wrangle her 3 boys. I ended up yelling at her that last year all she did was rope me into her mess. I didn't really get to do much of anything I wanted to do, and I was treated like I was called a bad guy for wanting to just go to an art gallery. I'm a grown man, and I deserve my own vacation too. Now my sister is not speaking to me, and my parents are still trying to convince me to just ride with them to keep the peace. I'm still refusing, but I'm starting to feel the pressure. Am I the jerk for not giving in? I know they'll have a pretty hard time when they won't have another person there to help edit. It's barely been an hour since I posted, but my sister is apparently a Reddit lurker in the mornings. She saw my post and is furious with me. She's also upset that no one in the comments is siding with her. To make a long story short, she went on a big rant about how it's so hard to be a parent to triplets. She said the least I could do is help because I'm young and single. She needs a break. I stood my ground on my decision. Now she's calling I'm expecting a call from them any minute. I'll give you an update when I get back to work. I guess you could say it's over. My sister got our parents involved. They looked at my post and were absolutely horrified by the continuous influx of commenters. Yes, they're very angry with me for posting here, but I told them that if they just listened to me to begin with, I'd have never needed to. I'm tired of the keep the peace mentality that sacrifices me to make peace. My sister went off on me, and to make a long story short, the whole vacation has been canceled. The hotel wasn't booked yet anyway, but my parents are arguing with my sister. My sister is blaming me, and my nephews are upset because they aren't going to the beach. My sister called me at lunch and basically implied I have no life, which is why I have time to help. I recorded that and I told our parents, and that's what they're arguing about now. I wasn't going to update again, but I have a little more to share. My parents said they won't ask me to babysit my nephews again, and that what happened last year was unfair to me. They're angry with my sister for telling me to help her because she thinks I have no life. My sister is playing the victim, and my brother-in-law, the lawyers, are basically saying no way to the whole mess and spending most of their time at work. Thanks to everyone who has commented. You made my day. My parents apologized, but my sister didn't, at least not at first. A week ago, I made this throwaway account to ask, am I the jerk? I was found to be anything but tea. I have too much to say to post in one go. Am I the jerk is an update, so a friend recommended I come here. My posting on Am I the Jerk, basically, I opened a can of worms in the family. My parents and older sister were used to me helping with the childcare of my young triplet nephews. I didn't leave home until I was 22 because I was trying to save money while also going to college. A scholarship covered a lot, and living at home kept me from getting into debt due to my working part-time. I'm very thankful for this, but after college, everyone just seemed to act like I had a lot of free time and was convinced to go on a family vacation with my 3 at the time 6-year-old nephews. I even had to share a hotel room with them. On the first night, they didn't listen to a word I said. I had to call their mother twice. I was treated like the bad guy for wanting to do other things during the trip. If the family isn't enjoying it, then it's not going to happen. I found this to be extremely hypocritical, given that I'm part of the family and wasn't included in the decision. I'm sure you'll understand that I shared my frustration with my parents after my last post. They have acknowledged that they were wrong after that awful vacation last year. I decided it was time to move out and did so before the summer even ended, which surprised everyone as I gave them no warning. I landed a great job pretty much right after college. Thanks. I got an internship and used moving as an excuse to drop my commute from 45 minutes to 15 minutes. My sister hated this the most because it meant no more free babysitting on weekends, but she still tried to make me do it. I gave in sometimes, usually by being bribed with pizza. This sort of became a new norm. But then last month my parents announced plans for another family vacation to the same place along the coast. They basically wanted it to go the same way, and I immediately saw what they were up to. I knew that if I rode with my parents and let them buy the hotel rooms, I'd be screwed over the same way as last time. So I just casually stated I'd drive myself and pay for myself. That's when the storm started. My parents realized they couldn't entrap me like before. They resorted to borderline begging. My sister practically tried to order me to go with the flow. She used gaslighting to try to get me to change my mind. I didn't. After I didn't give in to my sister's demands, I wrote the "Am I the Jerk" post after days of harassment. Then, my sister somehow saw the post in less than an hour. What followed was a series of events that I wasn't expecting. At first, the family was against me. My sister called our parents, and they called me when I still had a little time to talk in the morning. My parents were on the phone with me while also reading my post. I asked them if anything in the post was a lie. My parents tried to avoid the issue by calling the post an exaggeration, but I pointed out numerous details that made it pretty much on the mark. I also told them to check the comments, which were already too many to read. I was repeatedly refreshing the page on my home PC and telling them how many comments there were. Then I told them I was sick of their mentality of keeping the peace by forcing me to apologize to my sister. I said I was out of time and we would have to resume this later. My parents were pretty shocked that so many people were commenting so quickly. Later on, I told them that the numbers had basically doubled and were still growing, which only added to their shock. So they had to take a long look at their own actions. My sister tried to call me while I was at work, but my phone was on silent until my lunch break, so she just left messages and texts. She was persistent and managed to get through to me. When I was eating my lunch, my parents were really mad at me. They said that my post had taken them away from her side, and now they were mad at her. They canceled the entire vacation. They later said that they just passed the blame around because they were embarrassed and knew they were partly to blame. They told me that no excuses could excuse the fact that they made me their go-to free babysitter when I wasn't even living at home anymore. They did try to backtrack a little by I also reminded them that I never charged rent while I was in college. I was doing my best to make my own way after all. Then I pointed out that my father had the same kind of leg up from his parents. They let him live free of charge at home while he was in college. That basically ended any argument my parents had. When my sister called me at lunch, I presented the facts to her. She showed her true colors, though. She implied that she said I have no life and that my free time on weekends should be spent helping her because she is tired and unable to even go out without bringing her children with her unless someone is watching them. She is a stay-at-home mother with a husband that makes a decent salary. They live in a pretty decent house that's owned, not rented. To be frank, my nephews aren't really my responsibility. They just forced them on me and expected it to stay that way. My sister angrily hung up. I recorded the call and played it to my parents later. They were furious and started a war with my sister. My sister stuck to her guns, blamed me, and made it clear that she wanted my life to revolve around hers. I told her that was the most narcissistic and entitled thing she'd ever said about me. It took days, but her husband finally stepped in and forced her to apologize to me. I'd never seen her cowed like that by anyone. She was on the verge of crying. It turned out that one of the reasons I was the go-to babysitter was because my sister didn't trust strangers. It was never about the money. Was it actually my brother-in-law who thought my sister was paying me for my time watching her kids after I moved out of my parents' house? She didn't even give me gas money. She just gave me cash. That was enough to order pizza for both myself and the kids. My sister had been shortchanging me for months. When this came out during her half-assed apology, She was forced to pay me what she owed me in cash, entirely from her own savings, which she looked very sore about. My brother-in-law apologized to me for his own inaction in letting my sister walk all over me and promised they'd get a normal babysitter from now on. It'll cause a bit of a drop in the bucket for them, but my sister will be getting date nights back. It's not a huge amount, but my sister will get date nights back. The family meeting was the other day. We all met at my parents' house and we talked about everything. We apologized and so on. Then my parents said I could still go on the family vacation. I still plan to drive and pay for my own hotel room. I'll even stay in a different hotel if my sister tries to make me go back to childcare. I've said this, and my sister promised me that won't happen. If I don't update again after the vacation in another month or so, then you'll all know everything is fine. Update 2. My sister called me demanding I take my posts down. She's more upset than ever to know how far it spread. Having a family that knows about your Reddit account has its disadvantages. Yesterday, my sister called me after I got off work to ask if comments are still coming in. She said she cannot. She doesn't want to see the negative comments herself because they're so hurtful. I was honest with her, and at least 10 comments are still coming in daily. Most of them say the same things about her. She started crying and demanded I delete my Reddit posts, but I refused. I told her she can cry to anyone she wants, but the posts stay up because they're my proof she won't treat me like crap. It felt like my life should revolve around hers. She didn't pay me for babysitting, which she was supposed to do, and pocketed the money for herself. This meant I had to be the babysitter on last year's family vacation, which was no fun at all. Is it any wonder people are having so much hate for her when she treated me like that? Then, when I mentioned the posts have already spread to other websites because I was asked a couple of times to let them be published, she got angry. My situation was written up in an article, and some videos were included as well. My sister was upset when she heard about it and hung up. My parents then called me, begging me to take the post down. I refused and said that I only did this because they didn't stick up for me. This would have never happened if they had told my sister to treat me like an equal, not a servant. I'm not her butler, babysitter, or handyman. I'm her brother, and I'm sure a grown man would be tired of this crap in my shoes too. They agreed but still begged. I took the posts down. I refused and said that I'll keep making more if they don't start sticking up for me more when my sister comes crying to them. Let her clean up her own messes because all the enabling of her led to this. I didn't father those kids. I've got a life of my own, a career, and I'm still new to all this. I'm moving my life forward and I won't be held back. They can either step out of my way or keep trying to enable my sister, but I told them that the situation would end badly for them if they didn't stop enabling her. The only way this Reddit post will stop is if the drama stops. I've kept things anonymous and I've got a right to vent my very valid frustrations. My mother was crying. My father just went silent. And I said, tears don't move me. They know what it'll take to end this, and it's to stop enabling my sister. Well, my sister called me again to yell at me. She said our parents have told her they aren't dealing with this anymore and to figure it out herself. Oh, and they told her to be nicer to me, too. I just pictured her twitching as she internally screamed after hearing that. Kid brother, what is this? Do I look it up on Google? Yeah, I was that sarcastic to her. But it left her crying too when I hung up. My brother-in-law called me later to get my side of the story. He was mad. I'm still posting and I made his wife cry. But I explained everything to him, and he said he'd have another talk with my sister. I'm hoping this drama finally ends here, but the family vacation is still on for late June. I've already booked my room and requested a day off work so we can all leave on a Friday. My room is also not near the ones my parents, sister, Bill, and nephews will be using. In fact, it's not even on the same floor. When we go to the coast, when it's not a family activity, I'm gonna go where I want and do what I want. I'm sure you can guess what that means. I'm gonna tour those art galleries, pig out on local food, and just enjoy being carefree for a change. Update 3 after the family vacation. While the vacation is over, there are some things I'd like to share, both good and bad. The good news is that my parents didn't enable my sister to try to make me babysit. She did try, but it didn't work. She also tried to find out which room I was in, but that didn't go well and got her in trouble with her husband again. Firstly, I made sure to tell the hotel in advance that they were not to give out any of my information to anyone. I didn't share any of my information with anyone who asked, except for the police. They promised me over the phone that they wouldn't tell anyone if something happened. On the day of the vacation, I left earlier than the rest of the family. I knew they wouldn't be able to get moving as a group until at least 10 a.m., so I left at 9 a.m. Check-in wasn't until 1 p.m. I wanted to make sure I had a head start, so I sent out an FWI group text and was off like a shot to make the 3-hour drive. My parents were upset because they'd planned a family brunch on the way, but I pointed out I was never made aware of that, so they decided to cancel it and go with fast food instead. I arrived at the hotel early, too early for check-in, but I told the desk staff I was there to make sure my sister didn't give them my information, but they said they don't do that. I told them I know it still happens sometimes, so I'm covering my ass when they're dealing with my mother, my sister, and 3 boys who might cry at the desk. They had better not yield. I wanted to know if they'd try anything. They awkwardly promised me that only I would get access to my room. Then I decided to go out and I went out to get something to eat. When I came back, more than an hour later, I saw my parents' car and my parents' SUV in the lobby. I went to the front desk to check in. I made sure the lobby was clear, and then I asked the clerk if my family had asked about me and where I was staying in the hotel. They had, but the clerk wouldn't tell them. My sister had apparently tried to push it, but her husband shut her up. I checked in, went to my room, and then called. I didn't mention to my folks that I knew what they tried with the clerk, and they conveniently didn't mention it either. Then we all met up as a family to go out and tour around my sister. At one point, she asked me to watch her kids for a moment, but I said no because I knew exactly what she was doing. She would pretend to be gone for a moment and then be gone for an hour. I called her out, and her husband told her to stop trying to make me watch their kids. What did my sister do? She just started crying on the spot and said she needed a break. Her husband scolded her, saying he was tired, but he wasn't complaining. My mother gave me a nasty look, so I went right to her and said that if she tried to even think that I should be watching those kids, I would walk away from this family vacation right now. It's not my job, and I'm sick and tired of her, and my sister started crying too, and then she just started repeating the words, "You're right. This is another old tactic of hers." She tries to look pathetic to guilt me, but I just said, "I'm right," and to just let it go. I walked away before she could say anything else. Neither my mother nor sister tried anything for the rest of the day. When we got back to the hotel after dinner, my family were all crowding the elevator, but I didn't get in. When they asked why, I said I'd wait for the next one. My sister gave me a look because she knew exactly what I was doing. Then I just sat in the lobby watching YouTube on my phone for 15 minutes and took the elevator up to a different floor and end of the hotel. I had a great night, and the next morning we all went out for breakfast, but I made sure they left first. I was the last one out. I was the last one out the night before breakfast, and everything went well. Then I gave my family a quick rundown of my plans for the day. My mother tried to bring up plans to go to the aquarium and a couple of other places, so I said I'd meet them for those, but the rest of the day was mine until family dinner. They accepted this, and that day went fine too. Back at the hotel that evening, though, my sister caught me leaving my room. She was looking for me all over the floor. I went back to my room to relax a bit before dinner because I was tired from walking so much. My sister was just down the hall when I left my room to meet them for dinner. She tried to corner me and say that I'd ruined the family vacation for her because now it wasn't hardly any different for her than at home since she had to wrangle her kids. I called her bluff because my parents were helping her a lot then. I told her that I'm tired of this back and forth. It's already over, so let me be and focus on your own life. Then I started walking with her, yelling, "Hey, I'm trying to talk to you." I told her I wasn't interested and was going to dinner. She followed me to the elevator, and we both stayed silent. I didn't stay quiet and told my parents and my brother-in-law what happened. My sister had stalked me to find my room. She was scolded like a child. She had a pity party. I told her to stop milking it and grow up. The old days when she could force her will on me were over. Then I walked out of the lobby into my car. This time I was the first one to dinner. When everyone else arrived, my sister looked depressed. But not a damn thing was said about what happened before. And that was just fine with me. She didn't contact me at all that evening. I didn't want to ride in the elevator with the rest of them, so I told them that unless it was an emergency, no one was to come knocking on my door. I put up a "Do Not Disturb" sign for a reason. Everything went well on the last day. My sister and mother didn't bother me at all. They'd given up by then. I did play with the kids during the whole vacation. I got along with my nephews pretty well. I didn't ignore them or anything. I just didn't act like their babysitter. The kids were happy to play with me, and I even bought them little baggies of crystals and polished stones to take home as souvenirs. There was a bit of minor drama between my sister and her husband, but I didn't pay much attention to it. I'd say the vacation was a success overall. It finally hit home for my mother and sister that the old way of doing things involving me is over and I have my own life. After my last post, my mother and sister realized they don't know when to let well enough alone. I told them if they didn't stop, I would go right back to Reddit, and here I am. To sum up, my sister saw my last post and freaked out. She'd been stalking my account for days because she knew I'd post. What did she expect? That I'd just say everybody had a good time? She called me and cried that I made her look like a bad mother. I ended up replying, "Well, if the glass slipper fits." My sister argued with me some more, but I asked her to name anything in the post that was a lie. She tried several times, but I pointed out that every detail was spot on, so what did she do? She called Mommy. Then my mother showed up at my door demanding I delete all the posts. I told her no, and now I have ammunition for one more. I ended up making her leave crying. I spoke with my mother and father over the phone later and told them that their enabling of my sister led to the previous family dynamic. I will never go back to how things were, so if they have any hope of that, I'm out. My parents told my sister to stop blaming me and to leave me alone. They can't take the stress of my retaliation anymore. My sister had a pity party, and my parents had to snap her back to reality. My brother-in-law hasn't called. I'm pretty sure he's staying in a different state. This can't be good for his marriage or my relationship with him, so I'm out of I have to give my brother-in-law credit. He's been pushing back, and I appreciate it. My parents are now pushing my sister to get counseling because she's struggling to balance her old habits with her new role as a mom. I'm hoping this is my last post, but I'll keep you posted. If you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. I'm not going to be your personal slave babysitter. We can't be around each other. Maybe we can get along and move past this if you're willing. Don't give me a reason to write anything else. I'll only post about you on Reddit if it involves me and the treatment I get from people. Treat me like a decent human being, and this will be over. I understand. My parents and I had a long talk. They apologized. I apologized. And for now, we've agreed that I'll maintain a bit of distance until Thanksgiving. I also had a one-on-one with my brother-in-law last night over some beers. He told my sister she needed counseling or he'd separate from her, and they're looking for her a counselor. He also told me that while my sister was awful to me at home, she's a great wife. He also admitted my sister likes being an only child. We're nearly a decade apart in age, so she held on to some resentment about that for a long time. She's agreed that she does need counseling, and will be going as soon as they get it set up. They've also found a qualified babysitter to look after my nephews. Aside from those things, my brother-in-law did admit that he was angry with me too, but he didn't say why. He stepped in when I needed him, so we've agreed that this was all just a very bad situation that needs to be ended. We're just gonna let it rest in peace from here on out. Lastly, these posts have gotten me a girlfriend. The girl I like had a feeling it was me after she read them and was just waiting for me to say something. We'll be going on our first date tonight, so I thank everybody here for their immense support. I really needed it.